Great morning, great afternoon, and great evening, friends on Facebook. Wherever and whenever you're tuning in, whether it be live or on the replay. My name is Jonathan Sugai. I'm a mindset and body science expert, massage therapist, DeMartini values facilitator, DeMartini method facilitator. That's a lot. And today I want to welcome you to another episode of Mind Body Factor Live. And today we're going to be talking about the secrets of shoulder pain. Now, the mind-body factor, for those of you who may or may not know about it, it's about the intersection between your mind, your brain, your body, and I like to break it down into the body, mindset, and wisdom. And body is about the awareness of what we're feeling, so what's going on physically, and then even when we're having like emotions and energy, it shows up somewhere in the body. And then our mind, which is the mindset, how conscious are we of our thoughts and what our perceptions are. And then of course the wisdom, by tuning into what we feel in the body and what's occurring into the mind, and we put the two together, that's the mind-body connection. And if we take the time to listen into our symptoms and feel into them, there's information there. There's actually unconscious information that once we bring it conscious, we can take some action and therefore gain wisdom from the knowledge gained from the message within and the application of the knowledge, which is knowing. And so today's topic, we're going to be talking about shoulder pain. Now, who here on the broadcast has ever had shoulder pain at any point in your life? Type yes or click like or whatever. And who here is actually experiencing some shoulder pain right now? Now, shoulder pain is an interesting symptom that I've encountered during my 18 years as a massage practitioner doing shiatsu. And sometimes, I would be able to heal it, and, people would get better and feel great. And sometimes those shoulders would be kind of pesky. I would occasionally run into shoulders where, it was so tight. No matter what we did, it was just couldn't get in there. And sometimes it actually felt like it was underneath the scapula, which is what we're going to look at. We'll look at the anatomy today. And then the most difficult, the most challenging shoulder situations that I've dealt with in my career were frozen shoulders. Has anyone here had a frozen or stiff or freezing shoulder at any point in your life? You might be experiencing one right now. That one is the most interesting because that one really involves the complexity of how the shoulder interacts with all the other parts of the body. And so we'll go over that in a little bit. Now, a bit more about the mind-body connection. The mind-body connection, just a quick overview, is that we have our body, which we have our brain system, our nervous system, and then our how we perceive the world. There's a sensory side. We're taking in information through our nervous system, through our senses. So we're getting all this information, and it's the input. It's perception. So how we take in the world, it goes through our skin, it goes through our five senses, and there's a whole bunch of other senses that people aren't familiar with. And then we process that. And this is where Dr. John DeMartini's value system, axiology, is a great model that I love using. It's made a big difference in my life. How we perceive the world, positive or negative, is determined by our hierarchy of values. So if things are supporting our values, we will have a positive perception and we'll see things as positive or good. If things are challenging our values, we'll see it as a negative. We'll perceive it as painful. And that's one of the factors that causes a lot of the symptoms and the diseases. When our values are being challenged, we're experiencing stress. And it gets motored out. Instead of a functional movement, we get dysfunction or disease and the various things that occur. And again, if we look at what stress is, the definition of stress according to stress.org is that stress is a physical, mental, or emotional strain or tension, a condition of feeling experienced when a person perceives that demands exceed the personal and social resources that the individual is able to mobilize. Or if we do it from the DeMartini values perspective, our values are being challenged. So when we perceive more negative than positive, we're going to experience what's called distress. And distress is when, if we look at this chart, performance on the y-axis, level of stress on the x-axis, if our values are really being challenged, we're being over-challenged, we're perceiving more negative than positive, we can have, if it's really intense, it's acute stress, which triggers our fight, flight, freeze response in the sympathetic nervous system. If it's not that intense, but it's going over a long period of time, it's chronic stress. And that can lead to, either one can lead to burnout. So when we're over-challenged, when our values are, the negatives are in our perception exceeding the positives, we can experience burnout. But on the other side of the scale, so, you think, okay, well, why don't we get support all the time? Well, getting support all the time in our perception is also not ideal. It's not ideal because if we're under-challenged, we'll experience boredom. And maximum growth is on the border of pleasure and pain. Maximum growth is equal support, equal challenge in our perceptions. And that's what's called eustress. The definition of eustress is having inspiring challenges, having challenges that are aligned with your values, seeing the benefit of the challenge. Because everything in life has both a positive and negative. But we need to take the time to actually look at it. And so if you're more aware of your values, if you ask quality questions like, okay, how is this benefiting me? What's the benefit? That usually helps keep you in the middle. Now, the different ways we get challenged, this is the mind-body factor map, and you can go download it for free. sugai.solution/mind-body factor map download. The link will be in the chat, and it's also in the description. But the mind-body factor map covers the 7 most common mind-body symptoms and their related causes. And so these are the top 7: headaches, shoulders, sciatica, butt pain, knees, feet, low back pain, neck pain. And so today we're going to take a look at shoulders. So if we look at the shoulders, I'm going to zoom in on this. This is some of the most common themes. The most common theme is it's about relationships. And I discovered this back in 2013 when my mom, she's had shoulder pain for years, chronic shoulder pain, and she'd have acute episodes, and so she'd ask me to massage. And so I would do it, and she'd feel better, but it kind of bothered me why it would always come back, why it would always be there. And so when I was becoming a facilitator that year, I was training, I said, hey mom, I'd love to experiment on you, and let's try doing the DeMartini method on your shoulder. And she agreed, and so I had her, she was going through some shoulder pain, and it was on the left side, and we were feeling into it, and I said, okay, I want you to feel into it and then see what comes up in your mind. And to our surprise, she was actually recalling memories of when she was a teenager and all these fights and conflict episodes that she was having with her mom, my grandmother. And so we did the DeMartini method on that. We were balancing her perceptions, looking at where when she was perceiving challenge, where was the support, what was the benefit of that. And we just were going through memory after memory, episode after episode. And while we were doing that, she was saying, wow, it feels like my shoulder's getting looser, it's getting massaged. Even though I was asking her questions, she was sitting, a few feet away from me. And by the time we were done, we had done enough where she actually had a moment of grace. She broke down in tears and she let go of emotions, and she actually was able to say thank you. And she said later on, hey, my shoulder feels a lot better and I'm a little nicer to your grandma. And so that really blew my mind and really inspired me to keep exploring the mind-body connection. But with shoulders, from a mind-body factor, from a mind-body connection perspective, pain in the shoulders, usually it's about, some kind of a strong emotion where your values are being challenged in a relationship. It's feeling angry, frustrated, resentful, or upset about a relationship. If it's on the left side is the feminine side of the body. So if it's occurring on your left side, you want to check your feminine relationships. And so in my mom's case, she was caregiving for my grandmother who was, let's see, that was 2013, so she was 97, 98 at the time. My grandmother passed away in 2014 at age 99. Another symptom that people commonly experience is stiffness. And that's about experiencing resistance or resisting, what is, or resisting something that's going on in a relationship dynamic. And again, if it's occurring on the right side, it's the masculine side. You want to check your male relationships. Now, if you're checking your left side or your right side and, no males or females are popping up, then you may want to check any, so if it's on the left side, you want to check any males that may be behaving in a feminine way. And what I mean by feminine, they're being, feminine is represented by the water element. So that's being flow with, that's being more passive. That's about breaking down, that's about slowing down. So those are some of the common themes. And on the right side, masculine is represented by the element of fire. And fire is about rising, expansion, moving quickly, building up, doing. So those are some of the common themes. And if you look, and if you get the themes just right, it pops up in your mind. You go, oh my gosh. And when you make the connection, your symptom actually calms down a bit, which is pretty cool. So it's a great way to kind of relieve pain, but then once you know what the pain is about, you can go take some action on it. And we'll talk about a few things in terms of some action steps you can take. Now the other situation was the frozen shoulder. Frozen shoulders were really fascinating because I could relieve some of the pain and we'd get some movement back, but the shoulder would be, still frozen. We wouldn't regain the full movement. And that was fascinating to me. It also bothered the heck out of me because, as a healer, you feel like, okay, what else can I do? What else can I do? So over the years, I started to do some research and also experiment on my clients. And a few years ago, I run into this interesting case study. And I actually have the PDF, so actually what I'll do is I'll post it in the link and then I'll also put it on my mailing list. But I found this case study where these PTs in Europe did a study. They had one group, a control group, where they just didn't do anything with the shoulders. They just allowed the shoulder to run its course. And then another group, they did, they gave them PT, they did, manual therapies, they did all kinds of stuff. And they monitored it over the course of 18 months. And to their surprise, they found that the control group actually did a little better than the group that got PT. The control group, where they just, what they called it, supervised neglect, doing nothing, they actually recovered a little faster than the group that got all that attention and work, and it was kind of interesting. It took about 18 months for the shoulder to thaw out. So that really caught my attention. So that kind of, got me thinking, what really is behind the shoulder? So the mind-body connection was one of the things behind the shoulder. But also, what I came to realize is that the shoulder, it's a joint and it sits on top of all the other joints. So let's actually take a look at the anatomy. So here's the anatomy, and I'm grateful that it's quite more visible today. The solution was actually using my iPhone camera. So I'm actually broadcasting from my iPhone. I had the best camera, and I wasn't using it. I was trying to use my webcam, and the sensor just isn't as good. Anyway, here's the shoulder. It's quite fascinating. You see how this shoulder, this is the scapula, this is your humerus. Look at it from the top. There's the clavicle. It's a fascinating joint. It actually floats. The shoulder is, your shoulder blade actually, if we take away all the connective tissue, it actually floats. And it's supposed to float vertically right over the rib cage. Now, I had an aha just this past year that this is a joint, but guess what? This joint, in order for it to function well, it's sitting on top of all the other joints. So we got the hip joint here. And then we got the knee joint. And then we got the ankle joints. Oops. Now that shoulder joint is at the top of the stack. It's balancing on all the other joints. And so what I realize is that, if we're having problems in the shoulders, we definitely need to look and then check out all the other joints. Because if the other joints are having problems, but you may not be conscious of it, you're saying, I got shoulder pain. But if the other joints have a problem, it's going to throw off the balance of the posture and throw off the balance of the joints. And, if we look at, let's turn on the nervous system. You see how the nerves are connected? Yeah? So all these nerves all over. And one of the points that I made in the lower back, I was going to make in the lower back episode was, the back also is dependent, the back here is also dependent on the joints below. And you can see how the nerves connect between the two. So in my back pain episode, I was talking about how the nerves right over here in the thigh, and let's turn on the muscles. Right over here, right by vastus medialis, right by the sartorius, the inner part of the thigh, when I press on that spot, it's really sore. It makes people jump. And then I compare it to the other side, and often that side they can handle the pressure. But because this side has all the stress, so wherever your values have been challenged, where your perceptions are lopsided, the emotional energy from that will actually build up in different parts of the nervous system. So this is, in back pain, this is one of the joints, one of the things that I check for. This also applies to the shoulder. Because if this area is charged up, if this area is off balance, it's going to throw off the shoulder. And then, if we look down below, the other thing I'm catching, and this is a part of shoulder pain, is old sprained ankles. How many of you have sprained your ankle at least once in your life? And how many of you, after you sprained your ankle or sprained it multiple times, that ankle wasn't quite the same. It's either stiff or weak. Now, if your feet are unstable because there's been trauma down here, it's going to throw off everything else. So that was a really fascinating thing. So, if this is unstable, then all your other joints, because your body is actually more connected, your body has its automatic systems, it knows whether you're stable or not, more than you do. And so what happens is the other joints stiffen up. So the, old sprained ankles can result in knee pain, knee stiffness. It can affect your hips, affect your lower back, and affect the shoulder. And I've even been working with people with TMJ, and the TMJ problem, that's even higher up the stack. So if there's any joint problems down below, it'll actually influence and be a factor in TMJ. And so I did have a couple of TMJ cases earlier this year, and I actually started at the ankles, and as I worked on, relieve the pain in the ankles and got the ankles more stable, the jaw started to unstiffen. The pain was going away, or their ability to open their mouth was opening up. So there's a saying, as above, so below. And when it comes down to the joints of the body, the upper body joints are highly dependent on the lower body joints. And, the shoulder is, this represents relationships because of its proximity to the neck. And if we take away the muscles, we can see that, the nerves in the shoulder connect to the neck. And so often in relationships, we're dealing with people we perceive to be a pain in the neck. So when I'm working on shoulders, I also check the neck, and we usually find a lot of intense trigger points, a lot of stress and emotions there. So not just, not just the shoulder. You want to, look at, okay, another great question is where am I experiencing someone who's a pain in the neck. So if you look on the Mind Body Factor free download, if you're having shoulder pain, you actually need to check the other joints. So you can check the neck joint. You want to check your lower back joint, where your value is being challenged. You want to check your knees. So we go down to the knees. Here's a great spot on the knee. The back of the knee, right over here in the popliteus area. And let me add the muscles back. Right in here, and actually let me take away one of the muscles. The popliteus muscle and the popliteal joint. If you ever get pain, and actually, hey, Brian, I think we did work on your knee, yeah? Was it? Anyway, that spot is really intense. And if you look on the Mind Body Factor map for knees, it's about authority issues. Bending the knee, bending to authority, or standing up to authority. So whether you're the authority or dealing with an authority that's your values are being challenged, or you're challenging other people's values as an authority, or you're dealing with insubordination, that's where the stress energy will build up there. So you may be feeling it as a shoulder problem, but we're also, when we check from we're doing massage work, we can find emotional charges building up there. And then the hip can be affected too. So you may have hip pain. You might have charges building up here. The pains in the butt. Would you agree that some people in your relationships are behaving in ways that you perceive to be a pain in the butt? So the shoulders are quite fascinating. So now when someone comes in with stiff shoulders, frozen shoulders, I explain that it is yes, you have shoulder pain, and in order to I explained that this is a joint that sits on all of the other joints. So in our treatment plan, we're going to have to we're going to do some work up here, but we're going to check every other joint, because if we want this to be fully functional, it is highly dependent on the relationships with all the other joints. The shoulder joint is highly dependent. The balance of the shoulder is in balance. It needs to balance with all the other relationships with all the other joints, which is kind of like relationships in real life, right? We depend on other people depend on us, and how we manage those relationships and our emotional state and our perception state with all the other relationships. So, it's kind of interesting how they're actually almost one and the same. And isn't it fascinating how they manifest because of perception, because of the way, when we perceive the world, we build these mental models, these virtual models in our mind, which provides the context to our content. And how the stress actually manifests and where it ends up in the body, it manifests in these areas, in these certain themes, over and over again. So the mind-body map gives you these starting points. They're just starting points. And then you can really feel into it either on your own, or if you're working with a manual therapist, or if you're doing some stretching, if you feel into it and really get present with the pain, and you can do your whatever visualization or whatever presence exercises you do, whatever modality, you feel into it and just be present with it. You start to hear and become aware of the information that's there, unconscious information. And once you become conscious of the information, the pain tends to go down. Because that you could think of the pain as like a text message, as an email that you didn't read, and it's going, you've got mail, you've got mail. Hey, listen to me. But once you get the message, and you get the content and the context of it, then you can actually do something about it. And so once you know what it's about, it could be about a conflict you're having with one of your loved ones. It could be a conflict you're having with someone at work or in your business. You can take some action. You might just need to go have that conversation you've been avoiding. You may need to go, speak up, or maybe you're communicating in ways that are too challenging to people. You got to get some coaching to tone it down. Get help from a friend. Get coaching. Go, find a facilitator. Go do a seminar. Go read a book. But you can go take some action on it once you get the message. So, that's my my 2 cents on the shoulder. And so, with that being said, you can get your mind-body map as a free download. Here it is. Go to Sugai Solutions, mind-body map, and you can download it. You also get subscribed to my mailing list. Having a lot of fun sharing the mind-body factor and about the mind-body connection. So I will be continuing, and I'm going to be talking about other parts of the body. Next week, I want to go back to the lower back because I didn't get to do it justice. I was definitely having some distress about how the screen was showing up because I was using a webcam. I was having unrealistic expectations about technology. And I'm going to redo the lower back. And then we'll go over other body parts. And then if there's any body part or any specific symptom that you're curious about, that you'd love for me to have a chat about and talk about in a future episode, please leave a comment in the message below. Please like the episode. Please remember to follow. And if there's something that you learned that was of value, please leave it in the comments for other people to see. And then I would love to comment with you. With that being said, thank you very much for tuning in. This has been a lot of fun. The show is gonna go on. The response has been great, and I look forward to sharing more mysteries and secrets about the different parts of the body, the mind-body connection, and what I love to call the mind-body factor. So thank you, aloha, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.